Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Rediger with Sue Warner. Sue, are you
Hi,
there?
Hi, everybody.
Good. I did that. Wanted to make sure I didn't lose you.
Nope.
Well, I'm going to reintroduce Sue to all of you. Some of you have worked with Sue before. Others are new. And we're going to discuss the retirement plans today. But before we do that, here is Sue. And Sue is our federal training consultant to the field. So when you have questions regarding federal benefits, federal retirement, she is the one that you either talk to directly or through Alyssa via email. And Sue's been in HR for over 25 years. That was all with the Internal Revenue Service, correct?
Right. Yeah.
So she has quite the experience. And before we get into the topic today, Sue, could you give them a little background on since you retired from the government, what you've been doing with Fed educators?
Right. Okay. Well, I retired from the federal government, and my role with IRS as the HR specialist was perfect for just transitioning into the private sector and becoming a resource person and a benefits trainer for instance, federal benefits educators. And so all over the world, more than I even did with Internal Revenue Service, doing pre-retirement seminars for both CSRS and FERS. Fortunately, during my work career, I was working at the time that FERS came about, so I learned it from the ground up, and that has been quite a benefit. And I try to explain it so that anybody can understand it. I'm not sure how successful I am, but that's what I
No, you're very successful at it. So today we are going to discuss the differences in the plans, and we'll start with CSRS. So you just tell me where to navigate here, Sue, as we go through which section you want me to go on OPM as we discuss it. But that is the topic of today. So you want to start with CSRS?
Yes. First, I'm going to start with CSRS because this is the oldest retirement system in the federal system. It started in 1920 and has been the continual system. The law changed on 1/1 of 1984, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Jeff, if you would go to I'm looking for something that, well, you can go to eligibility, but I was looking for publications, and usually
publications
there's
here.
Yeah, except that that's under FERS, I'm afraid. You see where?
First CSRS handbook?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So pamphlets and publications, because there are any number of publications that tell about CSRS. But the basics right now are that everybody who is under CSRS pays 7%, or 7% is withheld from their basic pay along with anything else, and along with anything else they elect, for instance, and 1.45% is withheld for Medicare. Okay, so that equals 8.45%. Now, we also have CSRS offset, and the reason for CSRS offset is that in 1/1 of 84, the law mandated that any employee newly by the federal government, and not only the federal government, states were included in this, some hospitals, state police organizations. Anybody hired or rehired after 1/1 of 84, after they had been absent from the federal government were required to pay into Social Security. So CSRS offset people pay full Social Security and 0.8% to the retirement system rather than the 7% the CSRS pay. So that when they are eligible for Social Security, there's an offset to the civil service pension. And the reason is the offset is what the Social Security they earned as a federal employee. Okay? Now, the total of Social Security and their CSRS pension is always more than it would be otherwise, but regardless, and whether they apply for Social Security or not, that offset takes place when they're eligible for Social Security. So that will be at age 62 or at retirement if they retire later than age 62. And the pamphlet that you have pulled up
is
perfect, Jeff. And Jeff is pulling up the different pamphlets here because there's a lot of information on the OPM website, and OPM has the only official information. Okay?
That's a good point, Sue, because I know that we reference the almanac a lot.
Right.
But you were discussing earlier about why the advisor should use the publications on the OPM site.
Right. The almanac, because it's easy to understand, it's very accessible, and I carry a copy with me, and you can order it. I've got a toll-free number if anybody would like it. Would you like me to give you that?
Yeah, why don't you give it to us? Yeah.
Okay. It's the customer service number is 800-989-3363, and their website is www.federalsoup.com.
Thank you. And if anybody has questions as we're going through this, you could put it in the chat bubble second to the left. Type in your question and we'll address it as we go through here. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay. And it's although the almanac is not an official site, they're usually pretty much on, and they're a good basic. A lot of times when I can't find something on the OPM website, because as you can tell, just from what we've gone through right now, and this is just a piece of it, there's a myriad of information there. And sometimes things are not where I thought they should be, but a lot of times the almanac will lead me to the right place. So I use both of these. Now, we've already looked at CSRS, and since nobody hired 1/1 of 84 or later is going to pay 7%, there's going to be no more CSRS people in the future at some point. Now, I'm figuring after 19 or 2020, but could be longer than that. Some of these are real diehard employees and will be around for a long time. But starting 1/1 of 84, all people hired paid full Social Security, and at that time they paid 3% for their FERS annuity. Excuse me. And from 1984 to 1987, there was no name for this new retirement system that people were going to be under or were under at that point. In 1987, FERS was named as the Federal Employees Retirement System. Okay, now, during 87, and I think during 88, there were 2 open seasons where people under CSRS could transfer to FERS. And, of course, the number of people who transferred were not as high as what Congress had anticipated.
And why was that?
Do you want my personal opinion or the official one? Well,
I want your personal opinion on that.
Okay, my personal opinion is people figured the government hasn't done anything good for me so far, they aren't doing anything good for me now.
Okay.
And we had to train everybody in our agency, and myself and another person from Springfield did training for all agencies around here, but we were not allowed to lean either way, and we were not allowed to tell anybody what we were going to do. The bad thing is there were some definite benefits for some people. They should, that people that should have transferred and didn't, and other people maybe that shouldn't have but did. And what I tell people and what I told them back then is, once you make your decision, go with it. Don't look back, because it was irrevocable.
Right.
Okay? So now we have the FERS and FERS transfers. And FERS transfers, if they had at least 5 years under CSRS, will have part of their annuity calculated under CSRS and part calculated under FERS. But it all comes in one check, and it will all be under FERS rules. So that's why even people who have part of their pension or annuity coming from CSRS still need to go to classes on FERS, because the FERS rules govern how they earn their annuity, how they apply for it, and everything else. Okay?
Gotcha.
I see one of the places that Jeff has up here is that is on the left-hand side of the screen is retirement frequently asked questions, FAQs. There's a lot of good information in those frequently asked questions, and they change periodically, so you can check them every so often. FERS people now pay 0.8% because the Social Security has gradually gone up, and in that way, then the FERS contribution has gradually gone down. Okay? So right now, of course, Congress is doing a lot of talking about changing what's going on with FERS. I don't focus on what they're looking at in the future. I try to focus just on today, because none of us know what will happen. Okay?
Do you get that question a lot in class, Sue?
It's questioned in every one. They want to know what's going to happen with health benefits, what's going to happen with their annuity, are they going to keep the supplement? It comes up every time.
Okay.
Okay? And I'll check something else with you later, Jeff, okay?
Okay. But so the answer for you is you don't even go down that path. You just
right.
You just tell them, look, I have to stick by what is in force currently.
Right. What I tell them is what I'm telling them that is what is current right now, and they need to keep an eye on the newspapers and the ones that tell what's going on with their benefits in order to keep track of this. And one of the things that may be a benefit is the federal government works very slowly, so it isn't likely that within the next 6 months drastic is going to happen.
Right.
Okay. And the other thing, and it's come back again, is going from a high 3 years annual average salary to a high 5. That comes up periodically, and it's come up for the last 40 years. So, yet to that, I don't know.
Well, they've been talking about it for 40 years, right? So.
Yes. So it isn't something new. Okay, so some of these I just try to allay some of the participants' suspicions too. Just try, because retirement is stressful. And looking into the future can be especially stressful when you don't have a whole lot of control.
Right, exactly.
Okay? So one of the things I try to impress on them is they need to control what they can. Okay?
Got it.
Okay, so that pretty much takes care of the FERS basics and the FERS transfer, and then the CSRS basics and CSRS offset. Now, there's a lot of detail, a lot more detail that I could go into.
Right.
But sometimes it's just overkill. One of the things I might want to mention, and I don't know how many of the planners come in with this, but on the right-hand side under related categories, the last dark thing is called FERCA, FERCCA. And those are people who have been put in the wrong retirement system and discovered much, much later. And I have had several classes with a person who was FERCA in them, and each one was with a different planner. And so each one of them said at the next seminar, I met my first FERCA, because this is, a lot of people thought they were put in the wrong retirement system, but they weren't. There are some people, however, that were put in the wrong retirement system. And there is nothing that you or I can do about this. Their HR office is working with them, and OPM is working with them, and they have a certain number of people that will be working with them, and those are the only ones that can help them, okay?
So in layman's terms, these are just during the CSRS and FERS offset.
Uh-huh.
The CSRS offset, that they were, their credited pension contributions were should have been put into FERS and was put into CSRS. Is that what you're saying?
No, actually, FERS and CSRS is all one big pot of money. It's not separate, okay? Maybe it helps if you think about it that way.
Okay.
With CSRS offset, they paid 7% for however many years they worked for the government. They contributed their 7% to the retirement fund, but then they quit and were gone for at least a year. And if they came back after 1/1 of 84, then they paid 0.8%, still to CSRS, but they had to pay full Social Security.
Gotcha.
So they earned a Social Security benefit while they were a federal employee. And what they offset on their CSRS annuity or pension is the amount of Social Security they earned as a federal employee. Now, in the presentation that I do, we have a slide that illustrates that.
Right.
Okay.
Got it. So we do have a question that came in. I want to make sure we address this one before we run out of time. So Steve Iverson wanted to know if how the DoD medical retirement interacts with Social Security benefits. As a client turning 62 in 3 months, both in CSRS.
Okay, I have never heard of the DoD medical retirement before, so I'm not sure what we're talking about. There's the federal program, and then there's people who are in the military. They have like TRICARE or TRICARE for Life or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I'm not familiar with anything separate for DoD. And
Steve, could you give us a little more information? Type in if they're former military. It may help us there. So
okay.
Go ahead, Sue. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Let me go on just a little bit, though, because the main thing with TRICARE or TRICARE for Life, the veterans insurance, is that when the person turns 65 and is eligible for Medicare, they must elect Medicare. With any of the federal programs, you never have to elect Medicare if you don't want to. The only thing people lose sight of is a lot of times they may be better off electing into Medicare B, because without it, they're going to have copays and deductibles sometimes that are quite extravagant. Okay, and federal plans, while they cannot mandate that you pick up Medicare A or B, they can make it advantageous for it to do that. Some of the federal plans waive all copays and deductibles if you pick up Medicare B.
We do have another question that just came in.
Okay.
Can a CSRS employee let's see, can a CSRS employee receive a spousal Social Security benefit and could Sue clarify part-time service credit calculations and FERS annuity?
Part 10. Oh. Okay, that I'm not sure about Part 10 service credit computations. I'll try and give you what the service credit, but because of government pension offset, a CSRS retiree cannot usually receive a spousal benefit from their spouse's Social Security. And the reason is they have to offset 2/3 of their CSRS annuity against whatever half of the spousal benefit is. And usually that wipes out any spousal benefit. However, people who work past their full retirement age for Social Security, which is age 65 to 67, can get a spousal benefit and keep their, because the offset is based on the annuity. And a person who is working is not collecting an annuity, so there's no offset. Does that make sense to you? This is something that was not very, people were not aware of this several years ago, but as people are working longer, it's gotten to be quite
a topic.
Right.
Dale said yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Another question is, what are the advantages of taking Medicare Part A, B, and D and purchasing a Medigap policy? And what is the disadvantage?
Okay, I'm not sure that I can tell you the advantages or the disadvantages, but I can tell you that as an employee, if they ever cancel their federal health insurance, they can pick it up during the next open season. But the only consequence for them is that they have to work another 5 years. As a retiree, if a retiree ever cancels their federal health insurance, they can never pick it up again. However, a federal retiree can suspend their federal health insurance to pick up a Medigap policy or actually they call it a Medicare Advantage policy. Okay? And they can leave their federal health insurance suspended. They do that during the open season. And then the next open season, if they like their Medigap policy, they can keep it. And if they don't, go back to their federal health insurance.
Okay, got it.
Okay, and I recommend that everybody read all of the information they can about what plan they're picking up. Because I have never seen anyone that indicates they don't pay everything. And I'm not sure they do pay everything.
That's good information. Does the federal employees insurance come to cost? Where can I find the details of the Fed plan? This is a new advisor with us.
Okay, would you repeat that, Jeff? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm talking fast.
That's okay.
I've had a couple cups of coffee. This is West Coast time out here. Listen, I'm moving slow today. So, does the federal health insurance come at a cost? And where can I find the details of the Fed plan?
Okay, the Fed plan does. The Fed plan for retirees costs exactly the same at this point as it does for employees. And if you go on to the OPM website, one of the first things is the insurance. One of the things on there you can go into, or you can go into opm./insurance. Right. Okay.
Right. So you can go right in here.
Into healthcare and health. Right.
So you got it all right here.
Right. Okay.
Actually, they've upgraded their site. It's much more user-friendly than it used to be.
Yes,
Still not that easy. So.
No, but it is better than it used to be.
Yep. So getting back to Steve Iverson's question on
Department of Defense Health?
Yeah, it was not a former military. It was a DOD civilian.
Employee.
And it's medical retirement, so I don't know if that makes a difference.
And when it's medical retirement, is that a disability retirement?
That
because
I don't know.
As a disability retiree, you keep your federal health insurance, but you also, certain medical expenses that's related to the disability are covered by, for instance, workers' comp. Okay.
Okay.
And basically those things all go through workers' comp, except that for FERS employees, once they reach age 62, then everything reverts to just a normal retirement, and their retirement is calculated as if they worked to age 62.
Okay. The next question, so you may have to take this one one-on-one. It's one of our advisors has a client who serves not subject to the windfall elimination. However, wants to go on to work in private sector to complete her 40 quarters under Social Security.
Huh?
Yeah,
okay.
that might be one to.
Right, because 40 quarters is only 10 years under Social Security. That only makes sure that you're eligible for a Social Security benefit. The whole working lifetime under Social Security to be eligible to beat WEP has got to be at least 30 years of substantial earnings. So it can be, 35 or 40 years under Social Security, but 30 of those years have to be substantial earnings. And the substantial earnings are shown on the Social Security website.
Okay, we have time for one more question. And
can you go back up to Dale Workman's second question up there? He wanted to ask about the part-time. I think that's going to be a good one if Sue can address that right now.
Oh, yeah. Clarified part-time service credit calculation and FERS annuity.
Okay.
Is that it?
All right.
Alyssa?
Yep, that was the question.
Okay.
Okay, I can go ahead with that because part-time service is fully creditable for eligibility purposes. The only, but it is prorated when you get to the calculation part. So they get full-time credit regardless of the number of hours they work their whole career. But when you go to calculate what the annuity will be, what you have to do is take the total hours that they worked in their full career divided by the total number of full-time hours in that career. And that will give them a percentage, and you multiply that percentage times the full-time annuity. So if you have an employee who works 50% of the time, they're going to get 50% of what a full-time employee would get. There were some different ways of calculating this way back before, I want to say, July of 1985 or something like that. But now everybody is calculated the same. So it's made it much easier.
Got it.
Okay? And I think that Track software does that.
Does the employee follow up from Dale on that question? Does the employee get a corrected SCD that adjusts this?
No, the FCD would never be adjusted because they get full-time credit for their eligibility.
Okay.
Okay, so the most the employee could get is the number of hours that they worked during their career, and they'd have to get that like from their payroll or personnel office. And I don't know if personnel or payroll offices give that out. If they don't yet, I have a feeling that they will be shortly because they have to use those same figures to do the calculation.
Yeah. So, yes, you need to calculate it through track, Dale. Okay. We have one, I think Pat Robson wanted to know about on the opening, on the landing page for OPM, there was a pop-up screen that talked about HR web training. That's for benefit officers and HR personnel. That's part of the OPM webinar training, Pat.
Right, and that it's usually for agencies, and
yeah.
I don't know how much they are, but they used to be very expensive.
Yeah. So, wow, Sue, you're a wealth of knowledge today.
Well, thank you.
Wow.
She's a wealth of knowledge every day. I always say she'll forget more than I'll ever retain.
I know. 30 minutes, and we got a lot in, so I want to thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And people can get back to me through Alyssa if they want clarification on some of these, because some of the things I kind of remember, and if I didn't answer them clearly in the first place, I'd rather have them get back to me and find out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And anybody that needs clarification or questions, please go directly through me. And Sue and I have great communication. I think we talked almost every day via the email this week. So anything you need, don't hesitate to email me. My email address is Alyssa, ALYSSA, @fedresource.com.
All right. Well, thank you for participation. And Sue, thank you
Sue.
very much. And this concludes our presentation today, and have a great Friday, everybody, and we'll talk next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Alyssa, if you'd give me a call, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.